Hey guys, I want to go here into my visual journal a little bit more and sort of think out loud. My friend and I have been talking about business a little bit. He and I have wanted to start a business for a long time. We wanted to make games, we wanted to make art, tell stories, but we've kind of stumbled onto something because we both work in education and we both recognize that education is what's called a distressed market. Um, and I started reading a book a while ago. I never finished it. It's called The Don Doe Investor. Back when I was trying to invest and I failed, I stopped putting my money in things needlessly, and I'm just investing in myself as a person and my skills, and my work ethic. Things like that because that's the best investment that I can make for myself and for my family. But going potentially into business does not contradict those desires. And I guess I want to talk about what just kind of what's been. Ooh, excuse me, but I say bless you to myself. I want to talk about kind of what's been in my head as far as ideas um, in entering into this market, and not necessarily like entering into the education market specifically, but sort of thinking of some kind of new product or service that might address the problems that we found in this market. So if we think about education for a second, let's look at the weaknesses and the problems that could be fixed. So I work as a substitute teacher in both the public sector and the private sector. So I work as a sub in the school district. So in public education, the weaknesses are um, it's bottlenecked by bureaucracy. I'm going to be writing this down. It's bottlenecked by bureaucracy. So voting policies will kind of randomly, unpredictably get people fired. Like, if a state makes a decision, the statewide school, all the schools in the state as a whole are going to have to start complying by those rules. And a school in the inner city of San Francisco and a school in rural Clovis and Fresno, they're not going to have the same needs. And for both those schools to follow the standardized rules, like I get having standards for wanting kids to reach a certain level of proficiency in math and reading, and like that's fine and dandy. But so there's like a whole lot of things that I know Laszlo Polgar talked about. Um, which is like students are normalized. The level of education to be reached is normalized to mediocrity. Like if everyone has a standard and everyone should be able to reach that standard, then it sort of disregards um, kids that might be faster of learning or harder of learning, and kids who have different natural skill sets depending on their genes or their upbringing. Um, it's not really specialized, catered to the needs of each particular student because we're trying to cover everybody. I think be like having to cover everyone is a strength in the sense that you are able to create infrastructure and fund infrastructure that is able to gather everyone into the classroom. But once you get to the classroom, there's no incentive for teacher excellence. That's a big one. That's a huge one. No incentive, because from what I've heard of public school teachers, like they get inspected and they have to give their all on that one particular day that they're being inspected. Uh, and because they don't get paid very much and they don't really have pay incentives, at least from what I've heard, they don't really have pay incentives for you know um, improving their craft. I'm sure they can get job security, if everyone loves them. um, but as for I haven't heard of teachers getting very very high pay for being a very effective teacher. And when it would be great if a teacher could like scale their own teaching ability. Let's say some history teacher, like I had a history teacher in high school, a couple of history teachers actually who were excellent, the best history teachers I've ever had. And I felt, if these guys were able to teach this class so well, they could probably leverage things like, social media and the internet to take their lessons to the world. But of course, they keep it in the classrooms because I don't know if they have the incentive or even the desire to do that. Maybe they're comfortable in the classroom, but I feel like these guys could expand their knowledge. And maybe you, listening to this, have had a really fantastic teacher who are basically isolated to the classroom of 30 people in their own little town. Um, so the skills of teachers are very, very, very limited in the public sector. Um, so there's no financial incentive, and that makes it so it's not competitive. And I know we don't really want teachers to be competing against each other, but I think healthy competition is always good because it will push the best teachers to the top. What's happening, and I can talk about this a little bit more later, but what's happening is that kids are going to entertainment. Um, and you know what? I can talk about this. I can say boring. So the way public education is structured, this is a complaint that many people have had, is that it seems like it's set up, or the structure was set up in the Industrial Revolution, factory age, that when adults were going to the factories in the cities to get their wages, their hourly wages, they left their kids at the schools, and the schools set up almost like an assembly line where we have standardized education and lessons. We want them to be able to read and do math, and those are skills. Those are skills that are very useful. But if everyone can do it, you're gonna have to find some way to break the mold and shine as a child, as growing into an adult, so that your skills are going to be valuable to the rest of the world. So nowadays, to enter the workforce, you need to have something special, or at least not to enter the workforce, but to really excel in the workforce and get past even something like minimum wage. Even something like, as an entrepreneur, getting past even minimum wage can be very difficult. Um, so that's why I want to enter this distressed market, because I feel like you can do anything to improve education in the United States. In the private sector, in the public sector, it's pretty hard to enter into, and once you enter into it, you run into a lot of bureaucracy. Getting a job in that sector, I had to do a lot of paperwork, and there's a lot of rules, and the wages are very, very set, and you would need millions of votes to be able to change those things. And it's like in the private sector, there's so much freedom that you can kind of just do it however you want to. And how many people are you really competing against in the public sector? You're competing against YouTube right now. And so one advantage, it's actually an advantage that kids, and I can, kids are entertaining themselves into, and we know this. I'm going to use a strong word here, into degeneracy. And I know this because this is me, right? Content is, you know, uh, I think about Genshin Impact gotcha games, gotcha style games, where the game is set up so that you get addicted. And that's, nowadays the game industry thrives off of that. The more addictive it is, the more money they're going to make off it, because they're going to get kids to spend time playing their games and ultimately spend money playing their games. And there are few game developers now who have that integrity of wanting to make sure their game is worthwhile, that they're not just trying to steal your time, they're trying to give you something valuable with their time. And I know, like, there are developers who have that integrity. I know Nintendo really tries to keep that integrity. As much as as much frustrations as I've had with Nintendo in the past, I know that they want their games to be actually valuable to the people playing them, um, and they put a lot into that design philosophy. But any other successful game developer, like, let's say COD, for example, you're iterating upon the shooting game. You're still iterating upon Doom and GoldenEye and the shooting classics, and it's just iteration to make it more, I suppose, addictive. And maybe COD, I know, I'm sure there is some integrity. Like we're gonna put the history in our games, we're gonna make everything realistic and stuff like that. But ultimately, I don't see a whole lot in adding value to the lives of the people playing it. Um, so there's no added value. I think that's what's uh, it makes them exciting, but it makes them degenerate. So we want to make, instead of being degenerate, we want to create, I guess, generacy, if that's even a word. We want these things to actually add value to the lives of the kids. Um, so another thing that makes this distress market great to get into is that parents are desperate. So they know that, you know, they want to they want to find something on YouTube. They know YouTube is a great potential resource. YouTube, games, anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's YouTube or not. I know parents look to YouTube because they know they're trying to look for something. But parents are desperate for good education because we as parents know its value. Um, so yeah, I think this applies to both charter schools and public schools. So let's talk about. I'm just going to section this off because it kind of applies to both. I'm going to talk about charter schools. Now I know charter schools. I don't exactly know if they're completely in the private sector, or charter, but I can talk about both because I know they don't necessarily have to follow the bureaucratic rules of the state. However, I'm sure they do have to follow a lot of guidelines like safety guidelines, harassment guidelines, and they probably do have to reach like state standards as far as like is does your school like have some level of proficiency of reading and math. Now this is risky, right? This is risky because you're paying money to put your kid in a place that if the place is understaffed, underfunded, it's going to start declining. Because I've worked as a substitute in both the public schools and private schools, and I've worked in public schools and charter schools that have bad infrastructure and good infrastructure, bad staff and or I should say ineffective staff and effective staff. Um, Ineffective, school culture and effective school culture. I've seen both. Um, and when you have a public school, it's like okay, even if they're failing, they're still going to have the funding because and that gives the principals and the teachers the freedom to um, make their place better. But if all they're doing is managing their kids' behavior and they're managing the cleanliness of the school, um, it starts to have this like downward spiral because the kids are misbehaving. You got to staff more yard duties to make sure kids are behaving. You got to establish discipline systems. And what you're doing is you're doing damage control and behavior management rather than focusing on um, like making the kids want to thrive. And this is where we have to address the boring part because kids want to be incentivized. It's all about incentives in every direction. Kids want to be incentivized to work. Um, So, does education need to be entertaining in order to compete with the degeneracy that kids are allowing themselves to fall into? Yes. Rather than addiction, we want kids to have those, to use that dopamine and order it towards something that's actually good for them. And that replacement is going to be a huge task because it takes a lot of work to compete against um, the infinite tax money that goes to public schools, and also the um, the degeneracy of modern entertainment. And I think if we can just like gracefully uh, find the balance of education and entertainment, um, I think we have something golden. And I think many people are trying to do this. But I want to give it my shot. So charter and private schools, it's risky because of that. And the thing is, they kind of model themselves after public schools. And I think what they might discover is that you know what? Maybe public schools are doing something right because we want, like, we as a charter school, the reason we made this charter school is because we wanted to address the issues that were happening in public schools. Turns out it's very, very difficult to get funding. It's very, very difficult to, do the things that public schools are able to do with their staffing, like manage behavior and stuff like that. And so they realized we really need to create a proper incentive structure so that we're making enough money to staff enough people and that the kids are getting enough attention. But I think modeling themselves uh, after after public schools, then they start running to a bunch of the same bureaucratic problems and um, same. I don't know. No, I do know, but I'm just writing right now, so it's hard to think. They just run into a bunch of the same problems. Now, I think one of the solutions to this, for me personally, and one thing I can accomplish because I'm just, one guy, is tutoring. So, what risks are there? Well, hold on. Let me just keep thinking about charter and private schools. Risky. Um, Risky. It's risky due to time, financial. Now, I'm sure there are fantastic, like super, super fantastic charter schools because that's what they're designed to do. Charter schools and private schools because once they are able to create that environment where they have that balance of good incentives for the teachers, added value to the students, that they're actually succeeding in making students successful. And successful doesn't necessarily mean going to college anymore, maybe back in the day, but successful in the sense that they go to careers. I think a weakness of both of these two is that if you focus so much on general skills, but you don't put any uh, focus on like trade skills and like actually transitioning students to career. I think the pipeline is like, okay, you get kids to kindergarten, you teach them how to read and write, you get them to eighth grade, teach them some history, teach them some important U.S. history, get them to high school, and then in high school they will start exploring their talents and exploring different career paths. And then you have college where you choose a career path and then you study in that career path and then you get a career in it. Like honestly, thinking about it, the structure is pretty good. The problem is because it's so standardized, you run into all these weaknesses of everyone doing the same thing. And people are not able to stand out in the marketplace if a lot of people have either a useless degree or a similar degree. I think the thing about doctors and lawyers being always in high demand is because they have to reach these high standards, and not many people are able to work hard enough to reach those high standards. So they're always going to be in high demand. Like growing up, I learned that okay, accountants are always going to be in high demand. It was difficult to find a good accountant, and they are pricey, but they do great work. They do great necessary work, paperwork, math, taking care of the thing that people don't want to do. Having an accountant is wonderful, and it's funny because having an accountant is so necessary because it's, you know government taxes are such a mess of forms, and nothing seems cohesive. Like, what if Apple, as a company who tried to make things either easier for people, what if they designed the U.S. tax system or the U.S. voting system? It would be wonderfully seamless, but as it stands, it's funded by people who are paid for by taxes. And when you have taxes and you have to allocate those taxes, you're going to run into the same problems: bureaucracy, mediocrity. Um, it would be wonderful if the government was able to allocate with super intelligence, and maybe they'll use AI to do it one day. But ultimately, I think that I do think taxes are necessary because they're going to help us cover things that maybe the free market won't pay for. That's one argument I've heard, because the free market doesn't necessarily pay for everything, and the free market, a completely free market, I don't want to talk about the weaknesses of capitalism right now, but this is kind of like what I'm talking about, though. Public sector, the private sector, the weaknesses we're talking about, a microcosm of like the weaknesses of socialism, the weaknesses of capitalism. It's kind of funny, and for me, how am I going to solve that? At least in the education sector. Now, wait a minute. I forgot what I was going to write here, but I can start by how I can enter into this market myself. I think tutelage is um, it's a it's education at its core, because a classroom is efficient in the sense that because all these lessons are going to be the same, you can put out this class. And I mean, I'm sure Khan Academy, millions and millions of views. Khan Academy was a great innovation in education. And I think just the beginnings of um, the beginnings of what online education could look like. Now, I don't really want to necessarily dive into the market of online education yet because I'm not tech savvy. I'm again, I'm competing for attention, which is the competition right now with TikTok and everything. I don't feel like I can enter into that market and win because I never found myself with marketing skills. My YouTube channel is pretty boring. A lot of this is just thinking out loud, but I can teach. I have shown myself, because I've had a couple years with classroom experience now. As an art teacher, a lot of one-to-one experience with students, and I think this is a great opportunity. Um, because if a parent is so desperate, I can offer, a tutoring class as an artist because that's my skill. But if I can allow it to scale from there, I can start bringing on, if I ever get to the point where I'm going to hire someone, start bringing on teachers, and maybe instead of one-to-one classes, we could do one to one, one to two, one to five. Taking on that many students, but making sure that the attention to the students is still adequate, that their specific personal needs would be met. Um, but then, expanding to that, you could do, classroom. I could do classroom style lessons here and there. But again, if I do that, I would run into the same problems that charter schools would have. But for me to enter into it personally, um, online education or tutoring, I think tutoring is going to be a stronger opportunity for me. Um, and if it's tutoring, I wouldn't be able to necessarily get some kind of accreditation, and the accreditation system is something foreign to me. But it's a start. It's a start for me to dive in because at that point, I have total freedom to develop a mentorship relationship and really a good um, one-to-one personal relationship with a child, and I would have the attention to meet their very specific needs. Um, for something like this, we would then I could take this model and start throwing it into the business models, like the Amazon flywheel. Just start throwing it into those business models, lowering the cost structure, making sure the customer experience is really good, stuff like that. Um, so for me, I want to think about things that. So I think this will be my doorway. I can think of it like this for now, but it won't necessarily look like what you might expect from a tutor because I want to be thinking about all the concepts that might make a business successful. So, if we want to talk about business, there's education in a nutshell for what I've been thinking about. And then we can talk about business itself. So, business, if I want to take all this education and start throwing it into business concepts, what do parents want? Cheap, added value? Um, Cheap approaching free, I should say, because public education is free, and that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. But I think there are things that, because of its structure, its freeness does not leverage its freeness enough. Real added value. Um, and then, those are like things that I don't know. There's like all sorts of mental models I can put into having good business, and this is something I've thought a lot about before. Um, so as far as like marketing and creating demand, there is demand for good education, and I just need to be able to show that I can offer it. So what I need to do is just find a student or two and see if I can actually make something valuable. And you don't really need to have crazy skills to make something valuable for a student. Now, I have some friends who are music teachers, and this one music teacher told me that you only have to be a day ahead of the student and be able to teach, obviously, be able to teach that you are ahead of them. And I thought that was very interesting because he was asked to teach a certain instrument and he didn't really know how to play the instrument, but he learned it so that he could teach students, and he was able to teach the students. Now, me as an artist, I'm not the greatest artist in the world. I thought I had to be the greatest artist in the world, and maybe people would value my education more if I was the greatest artist in the world. But I'm fairly skilled, and I have enough. I have more than enough to be able to teach kids art. Um, and I have experience with kids and their different learning styles, their different needs for attention, their different um, kids. All kids tick differently, and it all depends on like how their parenting was. And it's interesting, like taking kids who had different parents and being able to sit them down and give them the education they need. And I learned that if I were to do this myself, I would have to learn how to like say no to a student too. Like, I am not sure if I am the best fit to teach this kid. I would have to be able to um, let the parent know. And I think I kind of had that in my previous workplace. But I personally had a difficult time turning kids away. But I think I should have been better at that. So if it's myself, I definitely need to be better at that. Um, but how would I make this cheap or free if my time as an educator is going to be uh, I'm going to need I'm going to need the incentive to perform. And what I would need to do is just create that customer experience, great customer experience with that good cost structure for myself. So I think I just need to start with marketing because I know I have the skills. I don't really need to work on the skills. So this is the thing too. The weakness of both charter and private schools is that we are confined to the classroom. So confined. Wait, I lost my confined to the classroom. So if you're a high school teacher, you're going to be limited to say 30 or 40 students tops. Anything more than that might be too crazy. If you're a college professor, you have maybe 100 to 200 students in your lecture hall. But it's like, why limit yourself? I mean, if you're a good college professor, and I know they do this at like Stanford, they will make their classes public. I know Robert Sapolsky, behavioral psychologist, makes his classes public. And then because of that, because he's a great teacher, he became a public figure. Went to a lot of people's podcasts and stuff like that, and teaching the same thing he taught in the Stanford classrooms. He's just a good teacher, and he knows his stuff. Um, so I guess it's all about taking any good teacher, whether you're good at tutoring or whether you're good at a classroom, and putting your stuff online. Another great model for me is Proco, one of the great art teachers of our modern times, because he took figure drawing, which is a skill that there are a lot of teachers who teach that skill. There may even be teachers who are better teachers than Proco, but he had a very very high level of education, made public on YouTube for drawing, and he basically set a new standard for like art educators. I know there's others like Jazza and Cynics Design. And there's a bunch of them, but Proco is kind of a standalone, who really did it well. He took this topic and did it well um, in the way. It's funny because do I call YouTube the public sector or the private sector? I mean, obviously it's free, but it is the private sector. It's just funny to call YouTube private because it by design it's open to everyone. Anyway, yeah, this is the stuff I've been thinking about. I guess it's just a matter of marketing myself, and I do have opportunities, especially with my church. And I think I want to do this, like for me personally, rather than talking about, general. Um, I'm gonna change this to maybe a purple now, or maybe a reddish purple or salmon or something, because I want to veer off of the blue color that I have and sort of go into how I can personalize this. So I like red. Let's just use the color red. But red seems like a bad connotation right now. Let's use like this, I don't know, magenta or something. So to personalize this, um, so how do I, Andre, hop into this market? Firstly, I need to market myself as a new local teacher with a business trying to take on new students. And I want you guys to understand that the reason I'm doing this is because not just because it's a business opportunity, but because I am a personal participant in the degeneracy. I don't want to say victim because maybe I was when I was a child, being swooped up by the video game industry in its infancy, the entertainment industry in its infancy, all sorts of entertainment, the worst kinds of entertainment. I got swooped up into that at a young age. As I grew up, I started seeing, okay, this is bad. This is a waste of time. But I did not necessarily know what could I replace it with. And I knew there were things out there that were good for me that I didn't know what to replace it with. And I understand the things that make games, video games in particular, addictive. I understand what makes entertainment and all the worst kinds of entertainment addictive. And now I think people are desperate for how can I engage my time with something that's going to make me better. Nowadays, I feel like, you know, I don't know. There's always kind of a debate of like, should I educate myself further or should I get a job? How do I balance both? Um, and and how can it be fun? Like, how can it be something I'm passionate about? When I think effective education kind of addresses all those things, effective education also addresses like helping kids find purpose rather than degeneracy. So I think um, cover all stages of education, um, incentivized by um, engaging. I don't want to say stimulating. That's not the right word. Engaging experience. That the experience itself would be a good in and of itself. That even though the purpose of education is like it feels like education the way it is right now is a stepping stone, and kids don't want to be on a stepping stone. They want to be what they want to be doing what they want to be doing already. This is why kids play Roblox instead of doing their math homework. There's math in Roblox, like any game created in a computer space. Ultimately, you'll solve it with math. I kind of realized that when I was a big gamer and thinking about game theory all the time. I'm like, wait a minute, every single one of these games can be solved with math and practice and time. Not thinking about the math, but then using your body to do the math, like clicking the buttons and pressing the buttons, and getting yourself in that flow state so that your body naturally starts doing. Basically, you're throwing things into a virtual world of skills that you could be using to add value to yourself and others. So that's like a big, that's like the big thing we want to replace. So I'm not just competing against public schools, charter schools. I'm also competing against the attention grabbing, addictive media market, because that's the battleground that kids are in. If you can bring those together and make education the place where kids want to play, that is gold. That is gold. That will change the world, really. And so this is why I'm passionate about this right now, because I think I'd never really set out to be a teacher, and yet I found myself teaching. I found myself teaching when I was in youth ministry, uh, and now as an adult, I find myself teaching. Even working in retail with a big tech company now, I find myself teaching, and I find myself needing to learn. So one emergent thing that's happened with my job is that I run into a lot of Spanish speakers, and so I'm trying to find good resources for Spanish speaking education, which I found in like apps and stuff. But I met a Spanish teacher yesterday, and she told me, I asked her, what do you think about Duolingo and the apps? And she's like, I don't really know of any apps that are great. Duolingo is not the best. I know people can learn, but there's nothing like working with someone and teaching them, um, and teaching them directly. So uh, with this, um, I don't necessarily. So this is the thing. I don't have to compete with public schools as far as like creating an infrastructure to teach basic reading and writing. Kids don't need my help with that. I think public schools are doing a decent job of getting everyone to some level of proficiency. So I'm not looking for proficiency. I'm looking for specialization and excellence. So for me personally, we could look at specialization. I want to make sure my handwriting is good. Excellence and purpose. Now this is the big, big, big thing that is missing. Because let's talk about this word, freedom. Now, I out of necessity, I stopped reading One Piece, my favorite manga, anime, whatever. Um, for personal reasons, I stopped, and I know it's kind of in its peak right now. It's in the final arc, and I'm sure the story's great. But again, it's for personal reasons that I won't talk about. But one of the main theme of One Piece, the reason it's about pirates, is because the greatest good in that story is freedom, and the main character pretty much optimizes his path for the greatest freedom. How can I become powerful enough um, to win in this world so I can be as free as I possibly can? What does freedom mean? Is it access to decisions? Is it just having free will even though you're oppressed? But I don't think that's the case, because if you're oppressed, yeah, you can have free will, but your choices are going to be so limited. That doesn't feel like freedom. Freedom feels like you can do anything. And that is a wonderful feeling, but in my opinion, I look at education, and what it's trying to do is get kids, able to achieve that freedom. And I look at the big tech industry, and all the markets as a whole, and it's like they're giving you these tools, like a smartphone, for example, a computer. They're giving you these tools that give you the freedom and power to do whatever you want. But once that's achieved, what are you going to do with that freedom? So we have these kids growing up in affluent homes who want to throw themselves into a gaming PC and start going down that dopamine rabbit hole, thinking that this, because it gives me the most dopamine, is going to be my purpose in life. And that was me. That was me for a long time. And I'm freeing myself from that because it was not taking me down. There was no added value, and I became a parasite to the people around me. And now I want to give back. And it's interesting because so how can we prevent that degeneracy from happening and putting kids in a position where they start giving back and contributing to society, start experiencing gratitude, start experiencing, interpersonal skills, start developing good relationships. How can we put that into the culture of education? Not necessarily teach those things in a classroom, but imbue the culture of education with such purposes. And these are things that are difficult because I know they're good, but other people, because they don't share the same philosophies as me, they might not agree that these are good. But I think what's good can be shown, in my opinion, because my definition of good is life giving. Uh, for the Catholic definition of love is willing the good of the other. Well, what is good? I guess for me as a Catholic, God is good. And what is God? He is uh, I guess the essence of being. And how can we know being and consciousness if not for? I'm getting into philosophy now, but how can we know being if we don't have like consciousness? Um, what was I getting at? Um, Purpose, freedom, love, doing good. So yeah, having that freedom, it's what freedom all it does is that it branches out your number of choices. And you still have a choice that you can make. And most people are just going to make the choice that feels the best. That feels the best. Short-term reward feels really really good, and helping kids know that hey, short-term sacrifice for long-term reward, um, or even permanent sacrifice for permanent good of others. That's like the highest ideal for me as a Christian. Um, that's what the freedom should be geared toward. Because once you have that freedom, you should start looking at, hey, I'm grateful for this freedom. I'm satisfied with my life. How can I give back? Because giving back eventually comes around. 'Cause, other religions will call it karma, but it comes around and it feeds back to you. That if you give love, it feeds back to you. So for me, freedom, the freedom of education has to be ordered toward love. And if it's not, then it's purposeless. Um, and I know I am coming from a Catholic background. I'm coming from these philosophies and theologies. But I think that's important to me because I feel like for me, in my experience with education and entertainment, that is what's been missing. That when I go into education, they're helping me build a life of freedom, which is great. That is a good in and of itself. But when I have that freedom with free time, I did it and I just did whatever made me momentarily happy, which was entertainment, self gratification, instant gratification. Um, and I got caught in that spiral of not giving back to anyone, just getting that dopamine and then not giving back. There was no throughput. It was just you absorb it and then you're done. Um, and so what is possible for any child is that they can take input and then the output will be more than what the input was. That they're actually contributing to society. And this is what I think it can be um, uh, it can be it it can be done. It can be done. We can succeed in it. Now for me, I think and I don't know too much about like Jesuit universities and stuff and Catholic schools, but again, the university system, the charter school, the systems of education, I don't want to be a part of that, to be honest. It's not appealing to me. I do want to be in education, but this is why I like the idea of tutoring, at least for now, because I get to keep that freedom and I get to keep that love and really direct it towards the success of whatever child I'm working with, child or children, or even adults. It doesn't matter, and that's another thing too. That's another thing too. I want it to be lifelong, um, lifelong. So, without mentioning my Catholic faith, I want this to be part of the culture and philosophy of whatever business whatever education business I create. That typically education helps people get that freedom, get those skills, but it has to be ordered towards something. Because if you think about it, a successful business is a successful service. A good car shop, the best car shop is going to be the one with the best pricing, the best quality workers. Um, they don't make mistakes, and you receive the car, in great condition, or maybe even depending on where you go, better than how it was before. So it's added value. It's love. It's love. There is love in business, because you're doing good for others. So lifelong. So that means children, lifelong education. So education should be for life. And again, it doesn't sound right, right? Because the structure that we have is like you get educated when you're a kid, and then you're thrown into the workplace, and then you go from there and earn from there. But what if it was a seamless experience? You get educated. What if a kid already had some kind of financial incentive early on, that we started the kid into the workplace? And I'm not talking about child labor. I'm talking about play. I'm talking about play that adds value to the world. And I think this is going to be the big key, if that's just another way to phrase it. Play that adds value. And this is difficult, right? Because play the a game is like an isolated, like, looping feedback system. It's funny to describe games that way, but that's kind of what they are. They're problems to be solved that kids can sort of iterate in a safe place. They can play, and it's fun because they get to engage in these problems, and there's no like permanent consequences unless the game is too dangerous. Playing tag in a dangerous place, the game's going to be too dangerous, and we want to keep kids safe from that, obviously. And that's just common sense. But what's not common sense is how do we turn those games into something that puts them into the workplace seamlessly, that gives them that business mindset seamlessly. Because why do we need to have a business mindset? It's because, you know, I think the whole industrial revolution and the employment system made it so that people don't have to think with a business mindset, so that entrepreneurship became this special thing that's like, oh, you're trying to do something, why don't you just join the structure that's already there? Um, and some structures are really good. Like I said, I'm sure doctors have their own complaints about the health, public health. But I'm sure they're getting paid well, and I'm sure they are also trying to address these problems. So it's funny because a lot of people will resort to YouTube, like we get YouTube doctors and stuff like that. But for me, it's education, and I'm coming from a background as a gamer, and an artist. So I think with art in particular, it's very easy to get that sense of play. So I think I personally will be able to do this well, do that part well. When it comes to teaching math and reading, I think there are other geniuses out there who are being able to address those topics and make them seem like play. And I think this is going to be a big market, because I know been a raging market for a long time. And what I want to do is enter into it locally, use the business models and systems that I have, um, and succeed in this field. So yeah, what does it look like for me? So let's not stop this train of thought, and let's really hone it in on something that I can start with. So let's make something actionable now. Let's go more into the red here. Actionable. Our action items. Put forth. Marketing. I'll just say put forth. Put myself forth. That's marketing. I don't like using the word marketing, but it is marketing. And a big opportunity that I have, is I'm active in my church. So my social life has been greatly reduced. And when I'm on Twitch and YouTube, it's hard to compete. But if I can be active in my church, that's going to be an easy way to put myself forth. So I'm going to say local parish. Maybe even we can go plural parishes, but we'll start with a local parish. One huge opportunity is that my local parish uh, has thought about making a school. And I'm even thinking about what if I entered in, as a participant in my local parish, and I just became a member of Knights of Columbus. What if I created like a new type of fundraising event? Or I can learn from the Knights of Columbus on how to do successful fundraising events, but I can create a new type of personal fundraising event with art education, and just sort of experiment from there. So, learn from Knights of Columbus fundraising. I think that's a big opportunity for me. Knights of Columbus are very financially savvy, great men serving the church. They do a lot of good for the world, so I think I can learn a lot from them. Um, so for putting myself forth, marketing, I have to know what to offer. Um, know what I'm offering, and offer. I like that word, offer. An offering, an offering for others. Um, and I think I do know what I'm offering. Skills and experience as an artist, geared toward the purpose of love. I think if parents see that in me, that knowing that the purpose of education is love, um, I think that even that philosophy will draw a lot of parents and students in. Just having that philosophy. And I think having that workplace philosophy and culture is huge because the new job I work at, it's is about the people, it's not about the products. What is the purpose of the products if not to serve the people? And I think that I've learned a lot from being in that environment. Um, so as an educator, I'm about the people, not the service itself. And the and I want the people to have that love. Okay. So I think this is good. Um, So I'm not sure what else I can do because I don't know if I want to keep engaging like the online marketplace for education, because I'm not tech savvy enough. I don't I because if you're gonna compete with online, you're competing with League of Legends and Duolingo. Like think about that. It's funny because Duolingo is successful because they've used a gamified model with ad revenue. Ad revenue, microtransactions, they use a gamified model. And that succeeded for them because kids want to play games. And then we look at League of Legends, one of the most popular addictive games in the world, does not necessarily translate into added value for their lives unless you're really good at the game and you reach the top of the game and it becomes this sort of corporate training field where you're playing for 14 hours a day because you want to be the master of the game, and all the money you get is from sponsorships and because you're entertaining the masses. It's like the incentives there are all out of whack, but it is possible to be professional and it is possible to create quote unquote added value in that space because people are looking for that dopamine. Is that really added value? I don't think so, but I'm not I can't question what succeeds in the marketplace. No, I can. I shouldn't say I can't question it. I can question it, and I'm questioning it now because I believe something better can be offered. But to enter into online entertainment and education, I'm competing with Duolingo and League of Legends, and I'm not in a place where I could do that yet. I have to start small. Um, so my action items would be starting locally. put myself forth in the parish, let my priest know, hey, I want to do some tutoring. Hey, I'm ready to do a class. I know my friend who's a painter has started doing paint nights. I kind of want to join him, see how he does it. Um, and I gotta all the while managing my time as a husband and a father. And still, as you've heard about in my recent videos, just still making those amends to my life. Um, so yeah, uh, Opus Lilium is going to be the name. So it, I still can engage in social media, but I'm going to start locally and use local to build my online presence. That's what I did in the first place, and that's why I was mainly able to gain followers on Instagram. Most of my Instagram followers were people that I met. So I think my skill is not necessarily in the online sector, but in the IRL presence. My YouTube channel is a bit different. My YouTube channel's um, quote unquote succeeded off of one video, which was one tutorial, and I haven't been able to match the success of that tutorial. So I don't know if I'm cut out for knowing what people want to watch online. Um, Not yet, but it's something I can learn, and I just have to do that learning process. But the incentives for YouTube are so small; you just get a tiny amount of ad revenue. So I might as well. My channel would have made this a similar amount of money if I just made that one video and then just left it there and then did other things. Because I haven't been able to match the success of that one video. Um, so what I'm going to do instead is use local presence to build Opus Lilium as a brand. Um, and yeah, Opus Lilium, my new Instagram, new channel, TikTok, Twitter, everything. I want it to be about um, gearing one's life to be a work of art full of love. Yeah. All right. So I think that sort of concludes my thoughts here, and I really need to start engaging in this. I have a day off today. I'm going to be painting today, but if by chance I get a chance to talk to my priest, I want to start putting forth these ideas to him, start pitching these ideas to him, and I know he will be open to it because he wants to use me in the parish. I know. So I think this is a great, great opportunity for me to start my own business. I'll talk to you guys later. For those of you that actually listen to this, maybe played it as a podcast in the background or something, I really appreciate you. I love you all. And if you have any ideas to support me, contact me either through the comments here, through my Discord, through my new Opus Lilium channels. Follow me on Instagram or whatever, wherever you can find me at Opus Lilium. I'll talk to you guys soon. I changed my Twitch channel to Opus Lilium as well. Yeah, I want to have that love in my life, and I want to be a blessing to you all. And this is just the beginnings of it, I think. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.